And I believe, Jared, your first answer, right? Or are we back to Andrew? Okay. Andrew, okay. We already know what Sarah Palin thinks the strategy in Iran should be. What should the U.S. policy be towards Iran? And what should the U.S. strategy be if Iran continues to get closer to developing nuclear weapons?
Yeah, this is an important question, and here's my take. Having had some conversations, as I mentioned, in other parts of the world, I think Iran's capability to develop nuclear weapons would pose a threat not just to the region, but to the planet. And for that reason, I think we should do everything in our power in cooperation with our international allies, if possible, to remove that threat. There are folks who mean to do us harm, and preventing them from gaining the weapons to do so, I think, is in not just our national interest, but our international interest as well. In the long run, I will tell you, I think the best way to achieve a more peaceful and secure world is to promote the causes that are not exclusively American concerns, the causes of democracy and human rights. Make it possible for our brothers and sisters around the world to gain access to the education and health they need to secure their own well-being. I had a chance last summer, for example, to go to Nigeria at the invitation of the National Democratic Institute and help, at their request, train members of their National Assembly in exercising the sort of oversight over their executive branch that any legislative arm needs. I think those efforts, democracy building before the Bush administration perhaps gave it a bad name, is a worthy goal.
Michael Bennet believes that nuclear Iran is an unacceptable threat to the safety of the world. It would destabilize the region, present a danger to many U.S. allies, including Egypt and Jordan. It would pose a dangerous threat to Israel. And it's something that he's been very active in supporting strong sanctions to end that. And like many of us, he's watched with hope, the hope of political change within Iran. Certainly, it's a very difficult, we can't overtly play a role in doing that. It falls to the people of Iran. There certainly are some encouraging signs, and we hope that coupled with the right type of economic sanctions, that no additional actions will be necessary. But again, I can't, understate the danger of a nuclear Iran or nuclear weapons in the hands of somebody like Ahmadinejad, who doesn't operate out of a rational place like you or I do, or even the leaders of the former Soviet Union did. They operate out of a place of religious fundamentalism, that just because, for some belief they could simply use the weapon, there's people who give up their own lives, and we have to make sure that we keep nuclear weapons out of the hands of the current regime that controls Iran.
Okay. Sir, way in the back.
Congressman and the challenger, going back to your Iran thing, for too long we've been presented, the American public's presented those arguments about nuclear Iran. What are we going to do? They have a defense alignment with China and Russia. So when are we going to start fooling ourselves? All that kind of talk is done is justify a glorified military budget, and we should be building up our own country.
Question regarding, I believe the question is, how do we consider alliances that Iran has in our strategic policy in that area?
Area where President Obama really deserves a lot of props, and certainly Michael Bennet has supported his diplomatic initiatives in the area. It's critical to have international cooperation around preventing a nuclear Iran. There simply isn't any other way to do it. They can very easily ignore whatever United States might do, even though we're trying to freeze accounts. I read that last week. We're doing everything we can. We're tightening. We've got to cooperate with Europe, Russia, and China on a lot of fronts. President Obama has taken a very different tact than his predecessor, and he's helped win back the trust of some of these other countries in dealing in the international realm. And that's the best way to use that leverage now, will be to help make sure that they're part of the solution in Iran to prevent them from obtaining nuclear weapons.
Let me offer a couple thoughts, if I can, about our ability to influence the decisions of a country like China. It is limited by a couple factors. One, of course, by the fact that China represents one of our largest creditors. That's why balancing the budget and achieving some control of our own fiscal future is essential. But two, because of our own record. I know something about this because I've taken 2 trips to China in the last few years as well. And on one of those trips, I brought with me petitions signed by 45,000 Americans asking China to use its power to end the genocide in Darfur. China is one of the chief financiers, chief weapons suppliers, chief defenders in the United Nations Security Council of the government in Sudan, which is responsible for subsidizing the Janjaweed militia who have raped, murdered, and displaced millions of people in the Darfur region of Sudan. And I pleaded with the folks we met in the foreign ministry in Beijing to use their power, their leverage, to bring the first genocide of the 21st century to an end. I can tell you, despite my diplomatic skills, the Chinese government was not interested at the time in a lecture about human rights from a representative of our country, and I think that's too bad. Once upon a time, this nation could claim more leadership in that field, and we can again. If we are willing, I think, to restore the best traditions of America, we can again, I think, lead a more hopeful world. And I think that would be not just in our own national interest, but in the world's interest as well. That nuclear weapons don't fall into the wrong hands of folks intent on destroying other countries or endangering their neighbors, if we were also able to draw down our own supply and promote peace and security at the same time.
Yeah, it's a very good question to ask. Just like with the lack of a comprehensive climate carbon emission control program, and I'm sure we'll get to that topic, America lacks the moral legitimacy to be a leader on the world stage. So too, with regard to preventing the proliferation of nuclear weapons, our moral legitimacy is undermined by the lack of our own leadership and our continued stockpiling of a nuclear agenda. So again, I know that Senator Bennett agrees that America needs to play a constructive role in reducing the nuclear arsenals of the countries that actually have them as well. And that'll increase the legitimacy that those same countries have, which need to be the allies with regard to preventing proliferation into additional countries. Now, there is a fundamental difference between stable democracies having nuclear weapons and countries like Iran, and indeed countries like Pakistan, where we worry about the stability of Pakistan because we worry about who might control those nuclear weapons. And they're all part of the same continuum, but we need to make sure that our moral credibility is not undermined in our efforts to prevent proliferation.